Oh, what is up, faithful colleagues? I have to look in the comments because I don't know. First of all, can you hear me? Second of all, what's up, Brandon? Third of all, what's up, colleagues? What's up, coworkers? Why am I wearing headphones? Honestly, I just really like our intro song and I like to hear it. What's up, Slapshot? First of all, I tried to make an individual thumbnail for the solo shows, and I wanted the donate button to be in the corner, kind of discreet. If you did want to donate to the shows, always appreciated. What I didn't want it to be was to be a flashing, gigantic billboard that says road hazard ahead. I did not mean for it to be as big as the actual image of me. But you know what, guys? What's up, Sea Dog? Happy Friday. I almost said Friday Junior, but no, it's the real Friday. I do want to ask everybody before we get started. In this world, we all need some good news. So who's doing something fun this weekend? I have a show in Fort Collins tomorrow at the Lyric Theater. If you want to come by, if you're in the Texas area, come out April 10th and 11th to the Creek and the Cave. I'll be performing there, headlining at one of my favorite clubs in New York. I have not worked the Austin version of it, but it's run by my homegirl. And it's crazy because I just remember Rebecca when she was just kind of like a flighty. It was kind of the Creek and the Cave was like a cool coffee shop in Queens, and then they started doing open mics, and then the open mics were going so well they started doing shows, and now she has 2 and possibly 3 locations. So shout out to somebody supporting stand up and doing it organically. So I can't wait to see my girl Rebecca. And also, yes, Brandon, protesting does count. Who is going to the No Kings parade this weekend? Because I couldn't think of a better use of time, quite frankly, than doing a No Kings March right now. And trust me, people are going to have plenty to be fired up about. I thought when I saw this morning that they were going to, it looked like the Republicans were going to kind of snake behind Trump's back and go ahead and make a deal with the Democrats to get TSA paid again. But no, they're like, let's make sure that we piss off people at every level in this country. There used to be a time in this grand old country where Republicans knew where their bread was buttered. They'd sneak into office on some, time for some fiscal responsibility, and we're going to run the country like a business and that kind of stuff. It works every 8 to 16 years. And they would get in office. They cut a bunch of taxes for corporations. They get us into a war. But kind of while that's going on, people are okay with it because there's enough rah-rah, sis, boom, bob with the country. We saw this with George Bush, when he got us into Iraq. This was kind of fresh off of 9/11. He went to Yankee Stadium. Remember, he threw that perfect strike. So there was enough Americana for the USA crowd to at least say, we don't really think they're weapons of mass destruction, but Colin Powell wouldn't lie. And we just got our 2 iconic buildings knocked down, 93% approval countrywide. There was only a few Democrats. If you go back and look at those congressional hearings that, the Bush administration at least tried to lay out the case for why they needed to go to war. And I do remember Auntie Miss Maxine Waters stood up and she was like, I don't get this. Where's your evidence? There's only a few people that stood up then. Democrats were on board with this. Obviously, Republicans were, and it would, I would say, be one of the contributing factors, besides the fact that she was a woman and this country just is not ready for that for whatever reason, that Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump, as he was able to pin the Warhawk lapel on her, which she wears well. And, that coincided perfectly with, at that time, I'm the no war, I'm the endless war. I was the guy that was against going into the Middle East, against Iraq. And that was one of those things that helped people kind of BS themselves and hold their nose enough, especially the second and third times that they voted for him. Because remember, the second time you uh, saw, how he handled COVID. The third time you saw him plan an insurrection and then just acted like that didn't happen. I just wonder, for all the people that, let me close this window, for all the people that, kind of shoot away the insurrection and have shoot away all the, even like the Epstein files, which they have, I guess, done a good job of getting us to stop talking about because there's a pointless war about to begin. But with the people that like looked at January 6th, does that spill over into their other lives? Or is that just because it doesn't seem like it's just for YouTube? It seems like a lot of them really believe like, yeah, there was nothing to see here. That was a demonstration, got out a little out of hand, but they shouldn't have been. There's so many people that truly think Joe Kent almost did not get confirmed for his seat because not only was he a January 6th truther, but he also believed that the FBI was involved in coercing those people to coming into the Capitol and that they should not have been, prosecuted. And that guy couldn't go along with Trump's lies about Iran for not even a full calendar year. So that tells you, when you have a guy that has, and Joe Kent has pretty strong ties to white supremacist affiliations, let's just call it what it is a January 6th truther. When those guys start to turn on you, that's a problem. And that's because this administration isn't working for anybody. Now, granted, the people who make bombs and missiles, they're like, cool. But this country, everybody, the farmers who you put in your commercials, they have that wide rolling shot of them, going over some wheat of some kind, and they say, I'm a farmer and I voted for Trump because of his values. They immediately took away their ability to export, their ability to import. Remember, all the cattle farmers were like, hey, can you not give Argentina not only $40 billion, but a leg up to sell their beef? Because we also have cows here and we like to sell that as well. And Trump was like, what's that now? Now they can't get the urea that they need for their fertilizer. And even if they did grow the crops, a lot of these government plans like USAID, and just a number of humanitarian missions, however you want to look at that, that's another Al conspiracy about like, what are those programs really? I'm fine with USAID because it did actually help people, but let's be honest, that's what's called, and I can't even be mad at it, it's what's called soft power. When you have soft power like USAID, when you tell a country like, hey, we're gonna supply you with this much food, this many nutrients, whatever your country is falling short of, that is a humanitarian mission, and I will not pick that apart. But that's also how, going back to how everything comes full circle, when you look at the Iraq war and the coalition of the willing. Remember that? It just rolled off the tongue. A lot of those countries were countries that we provided things to. And they're like, hey, remember how we've been sending all this grain over here? How about you send over some troops? That's why it was such a random collection. When you look at World War II, say what you want about it, those were countries that were like super recognizable. It's like Italy, Germany, and Japan versus the UK, the United States. And, and it just kind of like, those are, when you go back and look at the coalition of the willing, it was like, I think there's one country, I always pronounce it wrong. I know you guys are going to tell me what's, Sea Dog, yes, anti-Semitic. Sea Dog, I only have an hour here, so I can't go down all the things he was anti. Bro, I see, that is what was so shocking. about the Joe Kent thing. But just to finish up my thoughts on soft power, that's why when you go back and look at a lot of the countries in the coalition that are willing, they were smaller, poorer countries that depended on us for aid. And when we decided to just stop doing that, and when I say we, I mean an unelected South African ketamine addict that was bringing his kid to the Oval Office like it was Head Start with a black eye, rolling his balls off. I'm an older fella, y'all, but I've been to many an outdoor music festival, and I know what them eyeballs do. I know what those eyeballs do when you're feeling no pain. I'll just leave it at that. And that guy decided, you know what? And I'm going to look it up because I think the number is important. Number of children that have died since the end of USAID. It's kind of a grim thing to be looking up on Fridays, but we inform ourselves and we all need to know. Since January 2025, any guesses? I'll save you the trouble because this isn't the kind of thing you even want to guess about. 500,000 children have died since January 2025 because we stopped providing aid because we were slashing, we're trying to save money, which of course we did not. And they had to write that on the report, but that's not before all of our information was stolen. Guys, when we pull back and see the aerial view of what has taken place in this relatively, especially when you look at the timeline of a country, this short amount of time, that's why I keep asking, are we sure that the Pam Bondis, that the Mike Johnsons, I'm assuming Trump will have met his natural end, not wishing anything on anybody. But, thank you, Julia, for saying she loves the shirt. This is my little biggie. I like to make clothes. I like to make my own clothing. I'm turning into, I don't know, like an old seamstress over here. I'm down with that. But yeah, we've stopped like really questioning anything that's going on with our government because it seems like at every step it's corrupt and it doesn't make sense. And now that brings us full circle to the airport because I just looked right before I got on with y'all and I see that Mike Johnson, I didn't even send that. I have been super busy. Okay. I do want to send this just so we can take a look at it. But Mike Johnson rejects the Republican and Democratic agreement to pay TSA agents. Why did TSA agents have to suffer the consequences for the gun? It's like I've always had. I don't know if I told you. I think if we really want to get stuff done, we should like make it so that like plumbers don't get paid. Because once plumbers can't do their job, it's not like, I just won't fly this weekend, or maybe I'll drive. Once plumbers stop working, we all have many much different problems. And I think a lot more stuff would get solved. But yet again, and we also don't forget, as we're having a little bit of fun here, we saw the Air Canada crash, which took several lives. The pilots, they were such young. Now it's like, and I'm sure some of y'all colleagues are like this because I still feel young, but I'm 48, happy. I have no complaints over here. But when you hear that the pilot, I think was like 30, that's like, I look at that, not even to be condescending, like you're a kid, like you have so much, you're going to be so many different versions of yourself from 30 on through the end of your life. And for that to happen to him, and when they took a look at some of the circumstances, he was trying to coordinate. He was the only person that was working at LaGuardia. That's New York City. New York City had one working air traffic controller, and he was trying to not only coordinate flights landing and taking off, which I wouldn't be able to do. Let me do that for 5 minutes, and then we'll see how much we value these people. He was also having to coordinate because a plane had an aborted takeoff. So I'm sure, just being a layperson, that that totally screws things up. There was what, an ambulance or a fire truck or something that was on the grounds, and there's one guy trying to do all this. So we're gonna act like we don't understand how a pilot in Quebec then in short order lost his life because there was a collision on the runway. That's what's happening on our runways. We're all scared of what's going on in the air. But who knows? We can't really get there because the lines are not to be believed. I have, and a little bit of random good news. I got a random phone call yesterday from my boy Eric P over at Comics Unleashed on CBS. I did the show. It's weird when somebody calls you and tells you about your life, but I did the show twice. I think once in 2008 and once in 2010, and I'll be shooting it again. I don't know when it'll air, but I'll be on Comics Unleashed on CBS, and I'll record that April 6th, I think. Asar, I don't know what I would do without her. Dates don't mean anything to me. So Sarah just be like, you can't do that. You're going to be in LA. I'm like, I know. What? So, yeah. So a little bit of good news. So, I haven't been flying, but I will be flying a lot starting next month. And I'm wondering how I do this. How do I make a show? They interviewed, first of all, the most laid back, chill. There's a bunch of different kinds of guys in their 50s, and I feel like a lot of older, like, white guys with they got the silver hair going, they always get lumped in with like Republicans and you must be conservative. They were interviewing a guy that looks like he would be a textbook cutout conservative, but he was just a super chill dude that was way calmer than I would be about missing my flight. They're just kind of interviewing people in line, and they go, sir, how long have you been in line? And he said, I got here when the airport opened at about 6 o'clock. And they said, sir, it's 3 in the afternoon. He goes, I know, my flight is in 16 minutes. I don't think I'll make that. And it was funny because he was so deadpanned. But I'm flying for Comics Unleashed. I'm flying for work. Some people are flying for funerals. Some people are flying for very critical job interviews, critical meetings that could swing their year, or just, little stuff in life, like, watching people graduate. Your granddaughter's having a kid. Your daughter is getting married. How can you pretend to be sure that you're going to make your flight unless you go the day before? Like the day before, whatever you need to do. It's something that's really concerning to me. And the fact that they have shut down, pre-check and clear, it shows you that it's purposeful. They're trying to piss you off, because I would think the Republicans would be in Trump's office every day, like, great press conference, sir. I'm sure you're going to have a great weekend of golfing. Before you go, if we don't fix the airports, the people are going to storm the White House in about 14 minutes. So maybe we can get a little traction on that, sir. I cannot believe they're letting this go this long, especially when they're unable, clearly, through the media and just through public opinion, to pin this on anybody. Any Democrats shut down and they don't care. They are so dead set on getting ICE funding with this bill that they're just going to let the airport stay like this. And I'm telling you, we just saw craziness with spring break. I'm not saying that this would go on this long, but major holidays, some people aren't going to miss those. And a lot of people can't drive because I think filling up 2-3 tanks of gas will be just as much as a ticket. Every time I roll up to the gas station now, I look at what the last person paid. And now almost every time it is in the high 70s to low triple digits. And, I have seen MLO, with every tragedy, this is capitalism. So a new business pops up, and there's an older black man, late 50s, maybe retired. He said, "I'll hold your place in line," and he was charging up to $1,200. First of all, that is some rich people stuff. For $1,200 more dollars, I'll go to a nicer place. If I got $1,200 laying around, I'm not probably gonna go to Toledo. I'll probably go to Malta. That's I'm watching a dating show with SAR, and they're in Malta, and it's beautiful. That's the only reason it's on the top of them. What else? Where else is an expensive place? Monaco. I don't think $1,200 would help me there. But yeah, for $1,200, maybe you can get like a Temu version of that guy. Maybe we can go in and undercut him, colleagues. Maybe we'll start our own business. I'll plan it. No, I will get the smart people to plan it. We'll get Julia and Marcy, Sarah. We'll get Michael Dean to plan, and we'll just spread out all over the airport. And you just start. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna just like act like we're regular people, just pissed off like everybody else, and just be like, "Can you believe this? Our government, man, I can't." Oh, you're going to see your niece. Oh, I'm going to see my uncle. Anyway, food court. There's no one over there, and they're like, "But my place in line." I'm like, "Look, I can hold this down for you." And they're like, "Well, what do you want?" And I'm like, "Nothing creepy, just good old fashioned cash." And you know what? You haven't even gone through security. Go home, take a nap, give me your number. I'll text you when you need to come on up. That's not actually, as I'm joking, that's not really a bad idea in terms of making a little extra cash. Now, I will say that could backfire because people in line, especially when they're in a line that they kind of don't have to be in, are real ornery. I say this from experience as somebody that saw several fist fights in the city of Miami, because after hurricanes, it obviously damage to the electrical grid. Things are running extremely slow. So when you go to the gas pump, it works, but instead of you pulling the handle and the numbers just kind of flying by, they just tick like the second. So it's like 3 cents, 4 cents. So the lines are down the street. People are pissed off. And what would happen is somebody would, be next in line. And then right before they would get to the pump, some woman would come in and be like, "Oh, this dude is just holding my spot." And she'd have like 4 or 5 gas cans. Do you know how long it would take to fill up one of those red gas cans because they're trying to run a generator or something? People were not having that. You're not coming from the crib in possible air conditioning about to tell me I got to wait another 40 minutes because like this guy thinks you're cute. Like I saw people square up. So we're laughing about it now, but the airport is a place that's filled with tension anyway. And we need to be very careful about kind of like, putting a flame to that tinderbox, because it's just a place where something really bad could pop off. And on top of that, as I keep trying to leave this subject, but there's always worse shit, ICE is just walking around. The only people on the planet that we do not want to see is ICE. That's all we asked. And if we do have to see them, make them take their masks off. So what do? Trump does not pay the TSA agents unfairly. Now I think they're going on day 40. Do you know what a missed paycheck does to your life in terms of more? And it kind of dovetails into this story. This is another straight month where FICO scores have decreased, and mortgage delinquent. I knew I was going to mess that up, and I tried to say it fast. Delinquency, not delinquent. Delinquency has increased. And it's because when you start asking your citizens who have no criminal records, contribute to society, I would say that TSA is not only a line of defense, but also like they're part of a necessary pipeline for travel in this country, commerce, everything. When you stop paying them, not only does that affect everybody pre and post travel, but it also affects them because they're people too. They're not just something that we should talk about or be a punchline at the end of some senator's stump speech while they're talking outside of a big white federal building. These are people. And now I'm assuming they're probably 40, 45 days past their last check, which I'm assuming wasn't life changing. As somebody that's got 3 kids, somebody that's got a kid with special needs, I can't imagine what these people are dealing with when they go home. The back and forth of, is this shutdown going to end in a week, or do I need to start looking for another job? That kind of stuff. Do I have gas to put in my car to get to said other job? Lots going on. Okay. But since we are talking about travel, let's talk about our next story. By the way, let's just do this. This is fun. Yeah, welcome to Friends from Work. Remember to like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram. I'm just learning as we go. Also, remember to support our boys, my boy Vlad over at Spider Moving and Storage. We're gonna get to moving on with Spider. And what is not moving on is USPS. That's right. They're saying that because of, by the way, did you guys see the story that they said that the Philippines, because of the fuel and oil crisis that we caused, is 45 days away from having no fuel in the country? Cool. Yeah, so the post office is adding, I believe it is an 8% fuel charge on your packages because it's costing more to send things places because fuel costs more. I've talked about this before. I've asked you guys this before. Tori and I have discussed this before, and I wish the question wasn't still relevant or even more relevant than when I first asked it. What do you guys think people's threshold is for this? People are getting tired, and when you start, Dog, I love you too, bro. I really appreciate y'all. I really just like to get on here and just like, I feel like we need to get it all out before the weekend because, honestly, I'm a big proponent of this. We all need to focus because we're all news nerds and we're all reading too much stuff and a lot of it ain't great. So let's get it out here, type in all caps, say some terrible stuff about the frustration we're feeling, and then go out and have some fun this weekend. That's an order. Yeah, I'm not sure how much more the people can take, but I guarantee you people start getting booted out of their homes. People start seeing the blatant corruption. Julia said your daughter works for UPS, the company, and they're working hard to get rid of employees. I believe it. Well, wasn't yeah, I guess wasn't it USPS, the United States Postal Service? Weren't they trying to get a lot of postal workers to take early retirement, like early on? I don't know. I wonder if they're like, we could just deliver maybe a little bit slower, but cut 20% of our sales force. This administration's whole, let's just cut everybody and figure it out. I don't know if they understand how they think the country works. I think they think that because we are being propped up by an AI bubble and we do have some billionaires moving around here and there, that like everybody's good. I just can't believe that we're in a day and age. It used to be a time, and I know UPS and USPS are very different things, but like the idea of getting a government job was for stability. That no matter what, if you got a government job, might not be the most thrilling job in the world, but you know what? Your benefits are going to be off the chain. You'll be able to send your kids to school. You'll be able to afford a house, and you'll be able to live a nice life. And that ain't it, Chief. How many people had years of sweat equity in the Department of Education? All of a sudden, this sawed-off little man, Mark Wayne Mullen, and Linda McMahon, the current wife of Vince McMahon, who, and all right, we're going to talk about Vince McMahon too, just came in and just, first of all, clearly targeted Black women, women of color, then women in general, then minorities, just blanket firings at the behest of 19-year-old former, you know, video game racist that then got pulled up to the big leagues to work for Elon. They then, a couple months later, just published a report saying we didn't find anything. It's just so shady. And on top of the shadiness, y'all, have you guys been seeing that there are people that are making millions of dollars by going on to, there's one called Poly Market and one that's called Cow Sheet, I think. And they're basically gambling sites, but they're not gambling for sports. I'm assuming you can probably do that, but they're kind of, some things are morbid. Other things are just like, what date will we declare war? When will we invade? Will Trump, put boots on the ground Friday? Will he back out and back away from that? And there are people that just maybe because they're so good at betting have made millions of dollars guessing what Trump is going to say. And then minutes later, in one case, 16 minutes later, Trump steps to the podium and says, well, we'll give him till Friday. Oh, check cleared. The corruption is, and I know a lot of people in this administration don't read, but they have to know that of all the empires that have come and gone, it's when the corruption becomes so blatant that the people can't take it anymore. And you know what? As I'm looking, the prediction markets, thank you, Brandon. But you know what? ELC and Gabriel are talking about something very important too. And I'm going to swerve right now because we haven't talked any NCAA basketball. Now, last night, Iowa's Cinderella story continued, squeaking past Nebraska. I want to make sure I have all the scores in front of me. I cannot say this because obviously SAR is, do you see what y'all do to me? I'm like, you know what? We're going to have some fun. Al, it's the Sweet 16. You're a sports nerd. Let's do some sports nerd stuff. But I can't because as soon as I go to the story, I see that Tiger Woods has been arrested for yet another DUI. Do you see what happens? You can't avoid it. Okay, I'm going to look at this and then we're going to talk some basketball. Tiger Woods showed signs of impairment Friday at the scene of a car crash where he rolled his Land Rover. Didn't Tiger Woods roll his car like 4 or 5 years ago? Do y'all remember that? And there was, I don't think anything ever came of it. And people were like, was he impaired? And they were like, no, don't worry. I think this is the second one and he can't. And yeah, it's basically saying, he's recovering from a ruptured Achilles. In February 2021, Woods suffered significant leg injuries in a one-car crash outside of LA in which his SUV rolled over several times and left him trapped in the car. He was later left to deal with open fractures in his right leg. Jesus, Mary and Joseph, what is that? Indy, he almost lost his leg. I don't, and Julia, I know we keep saying poor Tiger. He's a great a great golfer, but he's also an addict. C-Dog, I'll tell you this. Anybody that doesn't know what compound fractures are, that's when the bone's coming out of the skin. That's real gross. I think that ever since Tiger Woods initially hurt himself, now granted, when you watch the documentaries about him, I think this is a person much like a lot of that generation of sports kids, the guys that are 50-ish now. There was famously a little bit before them, there was Todd Marinovich, that quarterback that played for the probably Oakland Raiders at that point. but his dad was a sports dad and pushed him, and he was lifting weights. I think he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated when that was a big deal when he was like 10 or 15. These parents push these kids, and most of them still didn't achieve their dreams because it's almost impossible to become a pro athlete. But the ones that did make it to the peak of their desired profession. It seemed like the time spent at the top and the time on the way down has been nothing but hell. I'll tell you, for somebody that took a lot of shit about his parenting, you know who are two relatively, not even relatively, very well-adjusted people for as world famous as they've been for 30 years? Venus and Serena. They are one of the few who's, I don't know what they, and Shelly's saying people who overachieve are often addicts and live on the edge. Shelly couldn't agree more. And I think, honestly, that's a lot of when you see entertainers, athletes, people that are addicts. Obviously, there's really one or two directions that you could go. I used to talk to comics about this. There are comics that wanted to keep the night going. I'm just saying comics, but singers, anybody that, anybody. If you want to keep the high going, so you just played a professional football game, you made a big tackle, scored a touchdown in Giant Stadium, 30,000 people screaming for you. Imagine hearing your name called, Emlo, and like that, people chanting your name. Those are endorphins. That's a high. And we cannot expect anybody to feel that high, condition your body like, hey, I deserve this. I'm that good. After your performance, people literally sometimes carry you on their shoulders out the stadium like Rudy. And then those applause die down. You stop playing as well. You get cut. And now it's silent. How do you, what other substance could you reach for besides drugs to get you kind of close to that? I think Tiger was twofold because, like I said, there's different kinds of drugs. From what I've read. I have a lot of time to think about this, and I've thought about the different kinds of drugs, the reason people use them, and who uses them. Like I said, for comedians, entertainers, they usually want to keep the party going because we work late at night. You know who else has this issue? And that's why it has nothing to do with the entertainers. Chefs. I've talked to so many chefs. Chefs and comics especially have such an interesting parallel with our careers. It's like nothing happens. Then all of a sudden 300 people sit down. You have to entertain them. You have to make art for them. And then it's over. And after that last person has walked out the door of the comedy club, or that last person has walked out of the door of the Bear, the show on FX, you're still like this. You're still frazzled. So some people want their hands to stop shaking, to come down from that. And those people are the ones that reach for depressants. I think, are those barbiturates? I never knew that. Every time the police officer would come to our school and talk to us about drugs, I'd be like, what is a barbiturate? But, when you start talking about people that, want really powerful marijuana, heroin, those kind of things that make you, sink into the couch. And there's other people, like myself, quite frankly, that I wanted to go out. I wanted to keep the night going. And there's drugs that will help you keep the night going. It seems like Tiger is on the kind of depression things. I don't think he's ever been happy. I don't think he ever resolved. And I did watch a documentary. It's on HBO right now. It's called Tiger. It might be on Netflix, but I think it's HBO. And memory serves, it does a pretty good job of just showing his dad was not a super pleasant person, didn't treat his mother super well. I think we can all see how Tiger's personal life with his wife worked out, and I'm not saying that was all on him. She seemed like a cold woman, but nonetheless, I'm sure Tiger did not help himself with his behavior. And word on the street, people that I know that know him, he's not the greatest guy. Some people they always say don't meet your heroes. But there are some people when you meet them, you're like I said, I used to work with Shaq. I'm a huge hoops fan. My first thought as soon as I got that gig was like, I hope Shaq is not a dick because I love basketball and I love his personality. And I didn't want to get there and he's just like, some super celebrities are like, yeah, dude, no one talks to him. You got to go talk to that assistant. I don't know if I ever told you guys this, a little inside story about Al's life. So I get the call to work on Shaquille O'Neal's show. It was called Upload with Shaquille O'Neal. It was one of those clip shows. They were trying to, at the time, like the Daniel Tosh show. What was that called? What was the Daniel Tosh? Sarah, Beyond Cool. But yeah, Tosh 2.0 or Tosh.0, that was big. Ridiculousness, which just got canceled, but still on the air weirdly. These television stations realized, oh my God, we can make a ton of money doing these clip shows that cost no money. The issue with shows doing sitcoms is they're expensive. You got to pay everybody. You got a director, you got a lighting staff, you got to pay people to get lattes. Your lead star is getting $800,000 an episode. The female lead's getting $650. They're expensive. What do you need with a clip show? You need a big green screen like that painting behind me, and you need some smart ass like me to go, look, I guess it'll be a clip of J-Lo falling at a performance. I guess unlike Shakira, her hips do lie. Boo. But you know what? Check cleared. You can take all of these clips. You actually have to call. I've realized a lot of these people are low-key divas. Like if somebody's got like a clip of their grandson falling out of a plastic above ground pool in West Virginia, they'll be like, you need to talk to my lawyer. I'm like, you're a lawyer. But yeah, you just get a bunch of these clips, you put them in a package, cats doing weird things, dad falling, doing something at Christmas, and you make 4 of those. You just get a writer like me to come in, write a bunch of jokes for Shaq. And so that's what Upload was. Long explanation now. Anyway, Shaq was amazing. The first thing Shaq ever said to me, we didn't start in studio. We did this weird kind of trade-off where, because he kept his old house from when he was a rookie with the Orlando Magic, so he still had this house. So we shot. We would write in LA for a week, and we were our writing offices. I've told this story before. Was right next to Suits, that show that Meghan Markle was on. And I remember like walking past and looking at the they'd have the whole episode laid out on what do you call those 4x1, the cards. I'm not going to move on. Note cards. Al, you talk for a living. And I would walk past their offices and I would be like, who would watch that show? I think a lot more people watch that than Upload. But so we would write jokes for a week in LA about all the clips. Then we would go to Shaq's house in Orlando and we would do sketches with him, and we would shoot the episode. So the first time we went to Orlando, we were at an outdoor mall in Orlando, and I see Shaq. I'm starstruck. I'm not cool. I'm from Ohio, dog. I know a lot of celebrities at this point, but I'm like, that's Shaq. That's not a celebrity. All right. Anybody can be a celebrity. A lot of YouTube celebrities. That's Shaq. And so I'm the only black writer, by the way. And so I'm standing there, and it's like the first time, like I think maybe this is the first time I'd never been in front of the camera. I had like a clipboard, and I had a headset, and I was writing jokes. And it was I was in a weird position because I'm like, I'm the comic. I felt like the square in a weird way. But Shaq walks up to me. He goes, "Are you a writer?" Shaq is gigantic. You cannot appreciate it. It's like trying to explain the Grand Canyon to somebody. You need to see it in real life. Shaq is as tall as he is. He's a huge giant of a man. And he walks up to me and he grabs my wrist and like, he goes, "Are you a writer?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, he like had the script of all the jokes. He goes, "I need you to blacken up all these jokes for me." And I was like, "Yes, sir." Shaq was like, "Hey, put a little urban, a little flair on these." Shaq was the best. He pulled all of us writers aside and was like, I don't have an ego. I don't have an ego. He was like, make fun of me, have fun. He was a ball buster. He was really just reaffirmed that there's some really cool people on this planet. And Sea Dog Shazam, you know, it's weird because Sea Dog said, "Oh, two things." Sea Dog said, "I'm gonna address a couple things that he did not like because his manager, who I believe is still his manager, they've been together forever." His manager called us and was like, a couple things Shaq did not like, and I can understand this. He didn't like people making fun of him, like being stupid. So he didn't want any parodies or sketches of him like with his eyes crossed, like, oh, I don't know. Like he didn't want that because he's not like that. You know, Shaq's a CEO, so that he didn't like that. And also, Sea Dog said Shaq Diesel. Sea Dog, you have to understand when you're 7'2", probably 390 pounds, even though you can be that size, there's some people, you'd look at somebody like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's an author, quiet guy, very reclusive, very skeptical of the media, doesn't like to do a lot of interviews, be out in public, and he kind of shies away from that attention. With the first time when we had our season wrap party for season 1, Shaq owned a hookah bar in Orlando. His agent calls us before we go over there. He goes, 2 things. Have fun tonight. Great season. He was like, no one try and take shots with Shaq because he's gigantic and you're not going to win that. But I guess they're drinkers. Like, I could take him. And I guess somebody tried that and they went to the hospital. And so we go to Shaq's hookah bar and, you know, I'm thinking Shaq's going to be there. He's going to be chilling. Shaq pulls up in a diesel cab, you know, like an 18-wheeler, obviously with no carriage on the back of it. It's got the huge Superman emblem on the front, and he's like honking the horn. Like Shaq wants attention. Like he realizes that anytime somebody sees him, that's going to be one of the best days of their life. So whatever you want to do, if you were a short woman and you wanted Shaq to put you on his shoulder, you'd be like, come on, man. He just was so accommodating, such a hustler. I'm so proud to have worked with him. All right. I don't know how. Oh, yes. We got diverted from Tiger onto Shaq. Okay. So let's see. Well, the women's game has started. UConn, number 1, 5 points over UNC. It's amazing that UConn's women's basketball has been going for as long as it has. All right, let's look at the games we have tonight, and I want to get your thoughts. Okay, who we got playing tonight? I know this is riveting. Okay, St. John's versus Duke at 5 o'clock. I guess that is my time, so probably Mountain Time. What do you guys think about St. John's versus Duke? I love watching St. John's play because it's the first time that you can see a college team that says, do you really have to be able to shoot to play basketball? St. John's just throws up bricks in a way that is inspiring because they're still good. I just have never seen a team that cannot shoot at all. Usually there's like one guy. Sometimes they'll get hot, but in a weird, super sports nerdy way. They remind me a lot of I can't even say the Houston Rockets because they got Reed and they got Durant. But yeah, I think the only way, and you can win with defense, St. John's is going to have to be like the 2001 Baltimore Ravens, meaning just all defense, take these high-powered offenses and just don't let them score. For St. John's to win, they're going to have to seriously win by a score of like 51-44. They're going to, because they can't, there's no off, they're not going to be keeping up trading baskets with Duke. So what we'll see, and I saw this when, as St. John's has moved through the tournament, even last year, I think teams, it's interesting especially when you're at a game live. I remember I went to the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. This is like, probably like 2018, 2019. I went with Hannibal, and it was LSU versus a great Auburn college football team. And I just turned to him and I said, it's weird when you can tell that the losing team has accepted that none of their plays work. I was watching that game. in the Superdome in New Orleans, and everything that LSU did, Alabama just stopped it. And there's a point where you're going to be professional, honor the game, and finish it. But there was nothing like LSU was like, oh, if that one play, they were just like, we're done here. We're just let's just finish. And that's what we're gonna have to see out of Baltimore, Jesus, out of St. John's, if they're gonna pull off the upset against Duke. They're just gonna have to smother them with just they have incredible athletes. They're gonna have to grab boards and play D. We also need to talk about Michigan and Alabama. I am so glad that Tori is not on this damn show today, so I can say this, and then I will delete it from the internet. Michigan's really good. Oh my God. Michigan is real good. They're one, I mean, and I'm old enough to take it back to the Fab Five. Fab Five, they were great players. Obviously, Chris Webber, future Hall of Famer, Jalen Rose. It's just like what an incredible team. But they got that one black guy that's got a last name like sounds like an ointment you put on your feet. What's his name? Oh, Lendelberg. He is ridiculous. Oh, Yaxel Lindeborg. I really liked. He's a 6'9", 240-pound senior. I think that's what my high school that's what I think I measured out to. He is a machine, and you guys know I always like the story that goes along with it. If you watched the Michigan game last week, they told this really cool story that obviously he was a gifted young basketball player, but he was a knucklehead and he was messing around. And he said he came home and his mom had taken everything out of his room, taken the door off the frame of his room, and said, "You're wasting your life, and I'm not going to let it happen." That's a mom. And he said right at that moment, he got serious about basketball, got serious about his studies and where his life was going. And right now, his life is going straight to Chase Bank because somebody in about 2 months, not even, is going to back up a dump truck filled with gold bullion and be like, want to come play for us? Michigan is so good. It hurts me to say that. If they do win the title this year, I can be benevolent. Is that the right word to use there? I used it anyway. I'll say, congratulations, Michigan, you won. What I will not say that about is their fake A football title in which there was a random dude standing next to Jim Harbaugh telling him the other team's plays. That title don't count. Also, Michigan, for some reason, does not acknowledge the Fab Five because I think of recruiting violations. Time to let that go. Their presence at your university is the reason we're talking about them now on a streaming platform 20-some years later. So let's go ahead, especially if we're going to allow that football one to stand, go ahead and get those banners, dog, and hang them. What are y'all doing, Michigan? Show some love to the Fab Five. They changed basketball, for Christ's sake. You got me sounding like an old man, but that's ridiculous. So, yeah, shout out to I can't even say shout out to Michigan. I hope they play a really good game. I'm not a great guy. That's as good as I can give y'all, and we need to be happy with that. We also have, and this is all we got UConn, Michigan State. I feel like that game, a version of that game has been going on for like 30 years. Because I just remember all the Michigan State teams and all the UConn teams, and they're always the same team. If you've been to where Michigan State is, they're in Flint, right? No, East Lansing. Same difference, and there's no shade. Hard-working town. Look at the players. Undersized guys that came out of there like Draymond Green. Guys that came out, they have, point guards that are undersized, but they're tough. Michigan State teams are tough. Tom Izzo, which if there is a name of a man that is perfectly named and suited to coach that school and that team, it's Tom Izzo. I always cheer for Tom Izzo. He just seems like he loves basketball. His teams are always tough and ready to play, even if they're not that talented. And this year they actually are. They're good on the glass. I like that Cohen Carr kid. And they are going up against UConn, who again, they're just always there. I've been watching UConn since Ray Allen was on the team. And that was before I had a driver's license. And here they are. My damn daughter and son have a driver's license, and they're still playing Michigan State. So I am excited to see. It just seems like this is just a game. I know that it doesn't always play out like this where they play each other in the tournament, but this is how it's supposed to be. You think about where UConn is. I believe that's in, is that New Haven, Connecticut? Or is that where Yale is? I think, no, it's in Stewart. Yeah, yes, and Sea Dog. Ray Allen was Jesus Shuttlesworth in that movie. He got game. It's been a while. And Sarah says OHIO. You know I'm gonna finish that girl. So yes, very excited to see that game. Just some great basketball going on. And to take us on out, it's gonna be Tennessee and Iowa State. I've actually been following Iowa State. I don't know, a lot this year, which is weird because they're always kind of good. And it's almost the same with their football team. I think they're like, well, we're not going to get the same level of players that Iowa is or Nebraska, but their teams are tough. That's where who's the Niners quarterback? Say his name. I can't remember names out of season. God, it's so embarrassing. The dude, Mr. Irrelevant, who just got paid. I don't want to look at the chat because I want. Oh man, Brock Purdy. I got it. Okay, Brock Purdy, who was called Mr. Irrelevant. Thank you, Brandon. Mr. Irrelevant meaning he was the last pick in the NFL draft. Guess where he went? Iowa State. And guess what he just did? Got a bag. Because being tough means something. And especially that kind of Midwestern tough, it's a different kind of tough than like, I'm from East LA. I'm from certain, Brick City, from the Bronx, also tough, but Midwestern tough is just different. I remember hearing a story. I'm such a nerd. I went to, when I was living in New York, HBO released a documentary about Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. It was called A Tale of Rivals. And Larry Bird, who famously shortened his career by many years by messing his back up because he was like laying asphalt on his grandmother's driveway. And he was a millionaire back when being a millionaire meant a lot, but he's still doing it. He ain't paying those kind of Indiana folks. They're different kind of tough. I was married to a girl from Indiana. I got a lot of Bob and Tom is out of Indiana. I've spent a lot of time there. Larry Bird said something on the documentary. He said, because I guess the person off camera said, you didn't miss a lot of games. Where do you get that toughness from? And he said, well, my dad worked in the mines, and if you didn't go, you didn't get paid. And he said his dad gruesomely broke his ankle doing God knows what. But he said you could see it coming out of the bone. And he said every morning for a long time, he would hear his dad basically screaming in pain, putting his boot on to go to work. And that's the kind of toughness that those Midwestern folks have. And it shows with the kinds of teams that they put on the field. Not always the most talented, but fundamentally sound and ready to go in there. So shout out to Iowa and Tennessee. That's one of them games. I'm not really cheering for anybody. I just want to see a good game, which I don't know. I'm kind of like that with most games. Sadly, I'm like that with Browns games because I don't expect to win. So I just want everybody to have a good time, get some exercise. I look at my girlfriend Sarah, who was bummed out because her Florida Gators were shocked and upset by what appears to be a good quality Iowa team. And I was like looking at her jealous, like, damn, I wish I could be pissed. I would like a good team before the end of my life. Come on, except for the Guardians. Baseball season has officially started. I'm excited. The Cavs, 2016, and they're good this year. So Al, stop complaining. You got good teams, plus Ohio State balling. So with that, y'all watch these games. Thank you for being here with me I love doing these shows. These kind of like Friday mess around shows. And we'll be back. I don't want to announce anything, but I might jump on here tomorrow to just like recap the games if anything happens in F around. So just put the alert bell on. Donate if you can. If you can't, you could donate by having some good content tomorrow when we hop on and talk about these games. So on behalf of Tori, who ain't here, Michael Dean, who's in my heart, and myself, who is right here, colleagues, co-workers, I love you. See you tomorrow, maybe.